First off, I would like to thank everyone for showing up today, especially as cold as it is. It definitely is a blessing that we're all here together. First off, I'd like to thank the Honorable Michelle Wu, our great mayor, the excellent job she has done. Also these guys that we've known, it seems like forever. Sorry, I get a little emotional sometimes. But Mr. E. Peter Parker, as well as Chad, Chad Higgins, who sorry, sometimes when you see family, it becomes a little emotional. But we're also here today to honor Keyon Sprinkle as well. It's definitely been a long time coming, and to see it full circle, from the youngest to the oldest, we're all blessed. All right? So for the sake of time, I know we all have busy schedules, things like that. We get ready to call up the first hitter. A guy who's part of our family, has done immense work. I'd like to call up first Mr. E. Peter Parker.
Hi, everyone. Hi. So it's an honor for me to be here today to speak about Keyon. I met him when he was just 17 years old, and it couldn't have been under worse circumstances. He was in the lockup in the Roxbury District Court. He'd been ripped from his grandmother's house and charged as an adult for a murder he didn't do. And I was assigned to represent him. It was my first murder case. He was 17 years old. And honestly, I don't really remember much about Keyon from that day, but I do remember his family because everyone was there. His wonderful grandmother, his little brother Kyle, I think his aunties were there. And we all talked after court, and they all told me that there was no way he could have done what he was charged with. And they told me how they knew. And they knew because there was a little girl from across the court who was outside playing when the shots were fired that killed a man on the street corner. And she saw Keyon come out of his grandmother's house right after the shots were fired. So he couldn't have been on the corner shooting the shots and been in his grandmother's house hearing the shots. He came out after he heard them. And that was the truth, and I knew it right then when I first heard it from his family. And then we started to investigate, and we firmed it up. We interviewed that little girl. Her name is Budge, or she was known as Budge. We interviewed her mom, who confirmed that Budge was outside when the shots went off, and she the mother ran out to tell her to get inside, those are gunshots. And then we started getting discovery from the Commonwealth. And we learned that other witnesses were telling the police the same thing, that Keyon was inside when the shots went off. A witness who was in the house with Keyon told the police that 13 times on tape over the course of many hours. She even told them that Keyon had gone outside when both of them heard the shots from inside the apartment, and that some little kid told Keyon to go back inside. Those were just firecrackers. And that was Budge. But the police didn't want to believe that. They said, no, you're wrong. Keyon was inside. He shot that man to death. Keyon was outside. He shot that man to death. They had no evidence of that, but that didn't stop them. They told her, if you don't change your story, we're going to put you in jail for the rest of your life. We're going to take your little kid away from you. Yet she clung to the truth hour after hour over 2 days of brutal police interrogation. Over and over again, she told the police, I don't know what you're talking about. Keyon was in the house with me when the shots went off. Finally, she couldn't take the pressure anymore, or the threats, all of which was on tape, which was crazy. right before they were going to put her in the grand jury to tell her story under oath, they told her that if she didn't change her story and say that Keyon was the shooter and was outside when the shots went off, they were going to charge her with perjury. In a murder case, the sentence for perjury could be up to life in prison. And they told her that. And they said, you got a little boy, and you don't want to go to prison for life. So she caved in. She lied to the grand jury. She lied at trial. She said what the police wanted her to say, what they threatened her to say, what they forced her to say. Keyon wasn't in the house. There was no little kid outside. We didn't hear no fire, no gunshots. And the police did the same thing with every other important witness in that case who was telling the truth. The truth was Keyon had nothing to do with it, not involved in any way. And scared to death of the police and believing that they were going to get in trouble, the witnesses ultimately told the false story that the police wanted them to tell. So I lost my first murder case. Keyon got life in prison without parole, and that means, at the time, you die in jail, and he was 19. And I tell you this not to bring us all down or to buzzkill this celebration that we're all here for today. I tell you this because this is the point where the celebration of Keyon begins. At his deepest, darkest hours, 19 years old, starting a life sentence in MCI Walpole, 120 pounds. He didn't despair. He didn't give up hope. He didn't settle in and accept that he was there for the rest of his life. He didn't feel sorry for himself. He didn't get mad and lash out. He believed that the truth would ultimately come out and prevail, and that he was going to be out here one day. And he decided that he would use his time in jail, however long he was there, to do everything he could to prepare himself for when he got out, to return to the society we all take for granted every day. He applied for every program he could in jail, and he wasn't even eligible because he was a lifer, and what good are programs for lifers? Why waste a program on a lifer? But he got in. He changed the rules. He got in them all the programs. And he not only got into all the programs, he excelled. He became a leader, and he helped countless other inmates with not a lot to look forward to make their own lives better. He was respected by his fellow inmates, not for his strength or his ability to fight or because he was feared, but for using his mind. And he figured all this out on his own in the worst possible environment, not yet a fully formed grown man. His faith and his hope never wavered, and we went through some horrible times in this case where we thought we were making progress or we were coming close, and then bam, we were right back at square one. And with each setback, Chad and I would go to the jail to deliver the bad news. And none of it defeated Keyon. I would leave the jail feeling better than when I went in. Imagine that. That's the infectious optimism and confidence and determination that Keyon possessed. He had no business making us feel better, but he did, and without even really trying. So I get to tell this part of Keyon's story today. And we would not be at this part of the story if it were not for the help of many who came forward and banded together to help Keyon. And I want to thank first Clarence Williams and Bruce Sprinkle, both of whom came forward to provide critical and crucial information without which we wouldn't have succeeded. I want to mention the New England Innocence Project, who agreed to take on Keyon's case, even though it was not a DNA exoneration case. And those cases are easy, relatively speaking. DNA shows you got the wrong guy. And that's the only kind of case the Innocence Project would take at the time. And this is the first case they ever took on where we had to prove that somebody else did the crime. And that's hard, I have to tell you. We had to prove that Keyon was innocent without somebody else's DNA. And the Innocence Project took on that case because they, too, believed in Keyon. And I want to mention the Goodwin Law Firm. Which allowed a number of its lawyers to represent Keyon, along with me, without getting paid. For many years, Joe Savage, Chad Higgins, to my left. Ashley Moore in the white sweater in the second row. Spent countless hours. They could have been billing a fortune to high-paying clients, but worked instead diligently on Keyon's case for free. And I also want to mention my private investigator and friend who sadly passed away before he could see Keyon walk out of the courthouse a free and innocent man, and that's Rick Hamilton. Rick worked with me during the trial and continued to work tirelessly. I think the proper word would be relentlessly for Keyon, and for free after the trial. And he was the most emotionally worked up over the case. He was the most impatient as the years dragged on. He was the most determined to right this wrong, and without him, it wouldn't have happened. And it's a shame he never got to celebrate the day Keyon returned home or today. Last but certainly not least, I want to mention U.S. Rep. Ayanna Presley, and then Suffolk County DA, and now U.S. Attorney Rachel Rollins. DA Rollins and Representative Presley were a big part of the reason that we prevailed. And they didn't help us because I persuaded them to, or because the Innocence Project did, or because a big law firm like Goodwin was involved. They didn't do it because there was anything for them to gain. They did it because they believed in Keyon. Both DA Rollins and Representative Presley got to know Keyon when he was behind the wall, and they would attend speaking programs and speak at programs that were run by the African American Coalition Committee that Keyon was involved with. Representative Presley was impressed with Keyon's tenacity and his dedication to educating and inspiring others. And she thought, even though he was one of the youngest members of that organization, DA Rollins recognized that Keyon was smart, thoughtful, and strategic, and had the ability to impact the community even from behind the wall. She was eager to see what Keyon could do for his community once he returned home. So we have part of the answer today, and thank you, Mayor Wu. And you've heard that, true to form, Keyon continues to educate and inspire and lead others. On Monday, he will have been out exactly 3 years. And in just 3 years, he's done so much. Imagine what we could be celebrating today if Keyon had not been held back and jailed for 20 years for a crime he didn't commit. I don't like to think about that anymore. I like to imagine how we'll be celebrating Keyon and marveling at what he's able to accomplish in the next 20 years. I hope I'm around to see it, because believe me, he's just getting started.
Those of you who know these guys, it's a blessing to actually see these gentlemen here. I know Chad, he's a man of very few words, but he is one of the strongest and hardest workers anyone could actually ever meet. And like I said, he's like Shaq. You know, he has no problem with letting the star of the show be the star of the show. Many blessings to you. With that, I'd like to, for the sake of time, call up our honorable mayor, Ms. Wu.
I'm not going to be able to keep it together after that. The cold wasn't going to stop us today from the celebration, and those who are bundled enough, we'll take a quick, short walk out to the site later, right after this. But I want to thank the Y for making sure that we could have this nice and warm space for proper celebration together. I also want to recognize, I'm joined here by my colleague, City Councilor at Large Aaron Murphy. We're here with our Roxbury Neighborhood Liaison, Keisha Santana from the city. And someone who, even after she moved on from that role as the Neighborhood Liaison, held on to Keyon and the family and really wanting to make sure that we could do this right for the city, Jessica Thomas. Keyon reminded me yesterday when we chatted that we see each other whenever it's really cold outside. And I think it's a sign of how when the conditions in the world, even when we're just talking about temperature, are such that most people are inside and kind of bundling up and worrying about themselves, he's out in the thick of it, taking care of things, taking care of community, finding ways to give back and be involved. 3 years home, free, anything. You are just getting started, as Peter said, but 3 years is another whole lifetime lived. And we all, unfortunately, know the statistics of how much our systems aren't set up to serve and properly receive folks who are coming home, and what can happen in a period of 3 years, and what the numbers say often does happen with stories that aren't turning out what we're celebrating today. And so, Keyon, in every part of your life, every one of the lifetimes you've already lived, you are a role model. You are an inspiration, and we will continue to follow your lead in how we can build this community for everyone. So I just want to congratulate you on this anniversary. And to your family and the team who is part of that family firmly, I can't even find the right words for what it means to just put aside what everyone's telling you about the odds or the likelihood or the scale of what you are having to go up against, and just barrel through because you believe, because you know what is right and what is true, and how powerful it is that this is about an incredible leader in our community who we now get to see taking on every possible thing, but also the example of how much we are missing out on as a society, how many other leaders we are missing out on right now because of the way our systems are set up. In this, a little over a year in this new role, and it comes with a lot of new things I have to learn how to do and balance. And there's always something daily that's coming at us to solve in all of our lives. There's always something unexpected that pops up in that day that you have to take care of and you have to work through as a parent, as someone at your job, as a community member. But to create space, to take a step back and say, how do we change the systems so that we're not just constantly treading water and fighting for the miracles to happen, but to make it all such that we're evening the odds and making it possible to recognize and have the truth be something that is a given and not just something we're chasing after. So I want to thank you all for all the work, all the many, many, many years of faith and determination to get us to this point. And the ripple effects of what we are here today celebrating will have generational impact for decades to come. I also wanted to take a moment and acknowledge that today would have been your grandmother Thelma's 83rd birthday. And so we asked around, just because we're very proud to claim her as well in the city. We asked around some of the folks that she had worked with at now what's called the Office of Housing, formerly the Department of Neighborhood Development. Yes, great. Yes, sir. They said Ms. Thelma was the first person you'd see entering the 8th floor of City Hall, always greeting people with a smile, always a sense of humor about everything, always telling anyone who'd listen about her family and her grandchildren. And we know she's here with us in spirit, and that she's so proud of you and all that you do. So, Keyon, on behalf of all of us, our entire city, our communities, I just want to thank you for continuing to give back and continuing to change our systems. You work and continue to share your story through the New England Innocence Project, with ROCA, as a mentor with Boston Wealth Builders and the Blackberry organization. And I just want to recognize also, for those of us, even just hearing your story and what you and your family have had to endure, it's painful and traumatic. And so for you to have the strength to continue telling it yourself with every reliving and every moment of that, to give back to others, is a remarkable act of heroism. And we want you to know that you are always wrapped in love by all of us, and we're here to share and to ease, wherever possible, the pain of even the memory of what you have had to go through. And so normally I would be saying this in front of the lovely street sign, but we are staying warm. It is my honor to dedicate this square to you. May it forever stand as a symbol of your resilience, of your family's strength, of your community's belief and faith, and a celebration of your commitment to that community. So I'm just a warm-up act here. Friends and neighbors and community, please welcome up to the mic, Keyon Sprinkle.
All right, well, did y'all put the heat on? Because it was one temperature over there, it's a different temperature over here. Wow, so I had this thing. I thought I was gonna say a bunch, but Peter said a lot, Mayor said a lot. I just want to thank you, and I want to thank all the people that made this possible and allowed us to have this moment. I really I could have never imagined this for me. Like, I imagined being free, but I didn't imagine this. And there was a verse in the Quran that I kind of held on to for strength while I was in there, and it went like, Allah can make a way for you out of every difficulty and then pour onto you from fountains where you could never imagine. And while I was there, I kept that as a way to allow myself to know that no matter how hard it is, what's going on, who's sick in my family, whatever, how many times emotion will go through or a setback happens, that God has the power to make that happen. And even, with the programs and things like that, I got a friend of mine, Tim Dale. He's here. I'm so proud of him, and we was both children in there together, and we fought hard to be in all them programs when they told us no. We did everything. We would write, they'd answer that, and eventually it comes to the point where you just can't say no anymore. So I think that myself and some others, we learned that if you just keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, eventually it'll give, right? And we formed a program called the Juveniles Lifer program, where it was just geared to people who was juveniles when they committed or was accused or whatever their crimes, and to try to help us fight to get free. You know, I'm kind of going off a topic a lot, but I just wanted just to point that out. As far as what's going on now, you can see I didn't imagine this. And I think in most of our lives, as we go through life, we're always in those type of situations where we got plans for what we want to happen, and then that happens a whole different way. And you're like, wow, I didn't see that coming, but that's the work of God. And, you know, on this day, like the mayor said, it is my grandmother's birthday, you know, and what happened was when we first kind of heard about, well, when I first heard, like, this was maybe going to be a possibility, it was supposed to be on my 3-year anniversary of actually being out. But I was talking to somebody, and be careful what you say. I was talking to someone, and I said, you know, it's unfortunate my grandmother wasn't here, because anybody who knows me knows what my grandmother means to me. In like 20 minutes, I think less than 20 minutes, I got like an email saying, hey, can we switch it to the 3rd? So I'm like, that got to be confirmation that, you know, it got to be confirmation. And, you know, and I also want to just highlight another mentor and friend of mine, because today is AP's birthday as well. So she turned 25 again for the 25th time. So let her know, a shout out, and I will let her know if it's a shout out. So I just wanted to say that. Okay. Oh, for the record too, as far as emails go, that was a good email, but I think somebody created and said, well, how can I make people work when they're at home, not at work, or if they're in the bathroom or whatever, and they created emails, because I'm always interrupted by emails, so I just don't like them. In all seriousness, though, I'm highly honored that you and everyone else that made this possible will make this possible, for acknowledging how hard it is for people to acclimate back into society, especially after doing 2 decades. You know, I'm not the first to hit the 3-year mark or 5-year mark. You know, I won't be the last, but, you know, the fact that you acknowledge that speaks volumes for just how aware you are. And I'm super duper grateful for you to do that, and for everyone who made this possible, because it's really hard. It's extremely hard to get used to being back home. It's from things as far as like just blending back with your family and learning the culture of your family and how to deal with your family, and there's new additions to your family that wasn't there, and trying to figure out how you can even have a relationship with them, right? Or, you know, when you're trying to learn how to go online now and do an application, and sometimes you got the question about whether you had a felon, or you don't got the question, but they ask for a history of work, and it's blank. So they already know, and you feel that you know, that hopelessness, like, I'm doing this for nothing, right? But you do it anyway, because the truth is most of the time you do get acknowledged, and you may get the job, but you still have to deal with that feeling like you're second class, right? And then, you know, for me, even going to the grocery store was a challenge, because I would go in there and I don't have 1 or 2 choices. I have so many, and I'm just sitting there, and I feel like I feel now, where people's watching me, and I'm just like, whew, I got a lot of anxiety. And it got to the point that I would go in there, look, and leave, because I felt like people knew how long I was staring, but there's nobody else in the aisle. So, you know, those are just things that I had to kind of deal with. Okay, let me get a woosah. I got a woosah moment. So, I know a lot of people that I grew up with or just met while I was incarcerated that never made a 1-year mark, never made a 2-year mark or a 3-year mark, because either they got the recidivism or, you know, they unfortunately lost their life, natural or not. And I also know a lot of men that have been out 3 years or more. You know, I see a relative that just came in, Joseph Brown, and he's been really helpful for me too, just knowing that he's been out and made it. And I'm happy that he's here. He took the time out. My uncle, he's been out for 20, so it's possible, right? But I just want to acknowledge that, because this sign has my name on it, but it's really for everybody, because this is the first time any of us or any person can ever be recognized for that type of accomplishment. So I'm extremely grateful for that. A lot of times I get, when I speak, I try to speak more motivational for people and not, so a lot of people's like, it doesn't matter what you're saying because you was actually innocent, right? But what I say to that most of the time is two things. Like, I was in there for 2 decades. So I've been out for 3 years and I'm still in prison longer than I ever been on the street. So everybody knows that prison takes a toll on people, right? So my second thing is what I just said the first time. You know, Malcolm X went in one way, he came out another way. Huey P. Newton is a great intellectual, a strong person, he's part of history, but he went in one way and he came out another way, because that's the power what prison can do. It can make you come out being so great and come out with a substance abuse problem and things like that. So it's really about the individual and the choice that you make so that you can, you know, dedicate yourself to going forward versus falling backwards. In closing, I just wanted to highlight some things that's happening. So on Monday, the courts are actually hearing 2 cases of juveniles between 18 and 20 that caught their cases and trying to raise the juvenile age. And I wanted to bring awareness to that, because there's really no difference between a 17-year-old, 18, 19, or 20. They're all the same. And they, at one point, was in high school together. But, you know, they're suffering the same anxiety, they're suffering the same will for social acceptance as everybody else. And in some of those cases, they may have made a bad decision, because a lot of them ain't bad people. They made a bad decision, and that decision is literally the only thing that people see their life to be, as if they're irredeemable. But everyone in here, we have people that's 50, 40, 30, even 25. There's decisions you made at 20 and 19 that you would never, ever make right now. So I don't believe that any person should be defined by one decision when they just maybe acted out of whatever. I think everyone should have a chance to, you know, redeem themselves. And it's not that, you know, this is a turnkey where if you allow the age to go up higher, everyone just comes home. They have to earn it. They're gonna earn it. But when they earn it, give them the chance to redeem themselves, because there's over 200 juvenile lifers. 200, you know, and in our state, we have per capita off of people more lifers in California. So, you know, just think about that. As far as the bill, I think it's HB 8322 about prisoners giving organs to get good time and stuff like that. Please don't support that. And I know the people who are supporting it, please don't support that. And I do respect them. I don't understand why they're behind it. But, you know, I'm not allowed to go sell my organ right now. I'm not allowed to do it. And if you allow a prisoner that's under the worst circumstances, say, hey, I'll give my organ for some time off my sentence to get out, you're allowing them to sell his organ. And these are the most disenfranchised people coming from the most disenfranchised communities. We can't support that. And with that, thank y'all.
Real quick. Real quick, I want to call you on back up, and Ms. Wu as well, our Honorable Mayor. We have some awards to give. Come on up, bro. Good job.
So because you can't keep the sign in your house,
Yeah.
we wanted to also make sure to give you an official certificate of recognition from the City of Boston. Certificate of recognition presented to Keyon Sprinkle in recognition of your ongoing support of organizations such as the Innocence Project and ROCA, and in honor of your work to fight for justice by taking on leadership roles in programs such as the African American Coalition Committee, Juvenile Lifers Group, the African Heritage Coalition, Jericho Circle, and Alternatives to Violence. These programs were instrumental in transforming policy, providing mental health support, education, and criminal justice reform. On behalf of the City of Boston, thank you for being a positive mentor to so many of our residents. And we just wanted to also say, I won't read each and every one of these, but to recognize the team who put so much. So also a certificate to Chad. To Peter. To Ashley.
Thank you.
And we have one for Rick for his family as well.
Yours take a photo?
Maybe away from the microphone. This way a little bit. Sure. No, you're good. Right here,
Miss Wolf, you can move over just a little bit, just so tight. Yep, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Get the name. Get the name. Thank you.
All right, with that, I'd like to thank everyone who has come. The YMCA, where we all, it's funny, we all used to play basketball and swim in here. You know, for now to come full circle. For it to now be full circle. You know, on my aunt's anniversary. Those of you who know, I've seen them come a long way. I'm honored to see that. I know the journey was hard.
For you too.
Today's about him. Today's about him. Thank you for all you guys have done. Miss Aaron, Ms. Wolf, Mayo, and the countless others that have supported him. My brother Rick, who was one of the toughest guys I ever met, and I walked the walls, the yards of Walpole. He scared me more than them. So it was a running joke between me and him. You're blessed. We're blessed. And we're about, you know, for those of you who know, we're about to make our way up here. Sorry, I'm a little emotional. You know, but I ask that you all walk with us up here and spend some time together and actually get to speak, because that's how community grows. That's how we learn about one another. Those are the things that are important. Because if we don't have a community, we all tend to be lost. Oh, Councilor Fernandez. That's it.
Hello, everyone. My husband, Vic,
Oh.
Anderson.
Yes, well, you know, I don't want no problems. I know him personally as well. I know I will be hearing from him later about it. But with that being said, hopefully as a community, we can all walk up and get through this bitter cold. But it's for a blessed cause. Thank you for attending. Thank you for all you've done. Thank you. Bless.